Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third event in our Japan House London series exploring chirimen, a type of silk crepe made of flat woven silk from the northernmost region of Kyoto Prefecture, known as Tango. This event is the last in the series in collaboration with Kyoto Design Lab. This event is called Exploring Tango Chirimen Scenario. So my name is Simon Wright. I'm Director of Programming at Japan House London. For those of you joining us today, we have a few notes for you. Please note that your microphone and webcam will be disabled for the entire duration of the event. And you will be able to ask questions to our presenters at any time throughout the session by using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. You can do this anonymously, or you can add your name. Should you wish. Questions will be collated by Japan House moderators and a selection will be answered live at the end of the event. Please note that we may not be able to answer all of the questions during this session, but we will endeavor to do as many as possible. Please note that the contents of this event will be streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, where a recording will be archived later. So this event complements the current exhibition we have at Japan House London, Making Nuno, Japanese Textile Innovation from Sudo Reiko, which runs until the 11th of July. And there is a special part of the exhibition which looks at textiles from the Tango region of Kyoto Prefecture. The event is brought to you from a number of different locations today. Japan House is based in London, and shortly I will be passing over to our chair, Anne Toomey, who is head of the textiles program and reader in smart textiles at the Royal College of Art, also in London. Anne will then introduce presentations from our two main speakers. Today we are joined by Kusukabe Satoru from Kyotango in Kyoto Prefecture in Japan, and Satomi Mika, who is based in Berlin in Germany. The presentations will be followed by a brief discussion with Anne Toomey, after which we shall try to answer as many questions as possible in the question and answer session. Interpreting today, we have Bethan Jones, who is behind the scenes offering support. Thank you very much, Anne, for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to have you. Thank you. May I introduce you to those who may not know, to all of those who are watching. Today's chair is Anne Toomey. She is head of the textiles program and reader in smart textiles at the Royal College of Art in London. She is a textile design, color and materials specialist with national and international experience in research-based design, product development, manufacture, and student-centered education. She has engaged with a range of multidisciplinary collaborators on advanced materials and fabrication methods for smart surfaces. Thank you very much, Anne. And without further ado, if I may, I will hand over to you to start today's event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome everybody to this event. I'd like to start by just introducing a little bit about D-Lab. Kyoto Institute of Technology's innovative D-Lab positions design at the forefront of exploration and innovation. And as part of this initiative, D-Lab introduced a series of textile summer schools that have explored new contemporary opportunities for existing and heritage materials such as chirimen silk. In 2016, the first textile summer school was held, and I led the interdisciplinary workshop investigating the potential for chirimen silk to be used in a healthcare environment. This was followed by a 6-month research associateship for one of our RCA textiles graduates, John McNair, to develop the S++ hybrid fabric, a clever hybrid of silk and biopolymer that is simultaneously hydrophilic and hydrophobic. The workshop used scenario building to explore this territory. The scenario method has been used by many sectors to help envisage a future possibility for invention. Best described as a creative exercise of storytelling, it helps us to explore what might be possible or desirable and to find what does not yet exist. Using speculative scenarios to generate new ideas for Chirimen has involved taking a materials-led approach in decoupling this specialist silk from the context of the kimono. In looking at Chirimen as a material rather than a product, can we uncover new possibilities through the decoding of the materiality and the recoding of this extraordinary and special silk for new ventures? So we have, as Simon said, two wonderful speakers with us today, and I'd like to introduce our first speaker to you. Kusekabe-san lives in the Tango region and works for Kyotango City Commerce and Industry Division. And he has headed the initiatives around Chirimen silk for the past 5 years. Within this role, he has been involved in projects such as the Kyoto Institute of Technology's Design Lab Textile Summer Schools, and is a member of the executive committee for the 300th anniversary of Tango Chirimen. In 2018, Tango textile producers exhibited at Maison et Objet in Paris for the first time, supported by Kusekabe. In addition to Kusekabe's understanding of the challenges of the local context, his previous experience in the private sector brings an understanding of some of the wider issues faced by industry. Welcome, Kusekabe-san.
こんにちは。こんにちは。皆さん、こんにちは。私は京丹後市の市役所に勤めていますKusakabe Satoruと申します。
Hello everyone, my name is Kusakabe Satoru and I work at the Kyotango City Office.
本日はこのような素晴らしい機会をいただき大変感謝をしています。
Thank you very much for this opportunity today.
ご覧になっている皆様が丹後の織物に興味を持つきっかけになればとても嬉しいです。
I hope this will give everyone an opportunity to develop an interest in Kyotango Chirimen and textiles.
では少し丹後の織物の背景からお話をさせていただきます。
Let me start with a bit of background to Tango textiles.
丹後半島は京都から約130キロ離れたところにあり、古くは中国大陸からいち早く文明が持ち込まれて栄えたと言われています。
The Tango Peninsula is around 130 kilometers from Kyoto and is said to be one of the earliest places to have benefited from culture crossing over from mainland China.
絹織物の歴史は古く、1300年前から織られています。その後、1720年に京都から技術が持ち帰られ、丹後ちりめんという独特の織物が誕生しました。
The history of silk here goes back 1300 years. And in 1720, the unique textile Tango Chirimen was woven for the first time using techniques brought back from Kyoto.
産地は独自の成長を遂げながら、時が止まったかのような風景が未だに残っています。
The area has developed and grown in its own way, but at the same time, it's almost as though time has stopped here.
丹後ちりめんの製造工程については、詳しくは先日配信された須藤玲子さんと丹後のメーカー、多友企業さんとのオンライン工場訪問を YouTube でぜひご覧ください。
If you want to know more about how Tango Chirimen is made, please watch the online talks and factory tours held recently with Sudo Reiko and manufacturer of Tango Chirimen and Taiyu Textile Industry Company, which are available on YouTube.
で、精錬など複数の工程を経て仕上がった丹後ちりめんがこちらです。
This is the finished chirimen that has gone through multiple processes, including scouring.
さまざまな条件を変えることで、脂肪の風合いや生地の光沢はこのように異なるものになります。
Adjusting different variables leads to different crinkled effects and levels of luster, as you can see here.
そしてまた柄を作り出すジャガードの技術が発達しており、刺繍のような表現を縦糸と横糸だけで作り出すことも得意です。
We also have advanced technology for jacquard weaving, allowing us to achieve this embroidery-like design using just warp and weft yarns.
丹後ちりめんは日本の経済成長とともに1960年代から生産量を大きく伸ばしました。
As Japan's economy grew in the 1960s, production of chirimen also increased.
1973年には最盛期を迎え、生産量が919万タン、1タンが約13メートル、919万タンは11万9470キロメーターにもなります。そして翌年には事業所の数が1万100件になりました。
At its peak in 1973, the industry was producing 9.19 million tan per year, and one tan is 13 meters, so that equates to 119,470 kilometers of chirimen. And the following year, there were 10,100 businesses involved in the industry.
しかしその後生産量は下降していきます。近年では最盛期の30分の1にもなってしまい、さらに新型コロナウイルスの経済的影響を大きく受けています。そして丹後織物工業組合の事業所の数も700を下回っています。
But production volumes went downhill from there. In recent years, volumes have fallen to 1/30th of what they were at their peak, and the coronavirus pandemic has seen them shrink even further.
で、生産量の減少というのは日本の着物市場の縮小が大きな要因です。
There are fewer than 700 businesses now belonging to the weavers' cooperatives. One big reason for the fall in chirimen production volumes is a decline of the Japanese kimono market.
さらに着物の流通構造は産地から消費者に渡るまでこのように複数の問屋を介します。
Structurally, there have always been a number of middlemen between the manufacturer and the consumer in the kimono production and distribution process.
これは物流やさまざまな販売チャンネルが発達していなかった時代にはうまく機能していたシステムです。
The system worked well when there weren't so many distribution channels to worry about.
しかし問屋が需要と供給の間でうまく調整役を担うことはとても重要なことです。
The middlemen also played an important role in balancing supply and demand.
1980年代には1兆8000億円あった着物の市場は現在では3000億円を下回るほど縮小してしまいました。
But by the 1980s, what had been a 1.8 trillion yen market for kimono had shrunk to less than 300 billion yen.
それでも流通システムは基本的に更新されていないので、丹後ちりめんの着物は高級な品物ではありますが、必ずしも産地にその利益が適正にもたらされるとは限らない状況が生まれてきたのです。
So that was 1.8 trillion in the 80s and shrinking to 300 billion in 2020. But the distribution system was never updated. So although chirimen kimono are a luxury item, it ended up being that producers didn't necessarily see profits befitting its luxury status.
丹後ではちりめんだけではなく西陣織の帯の下請けを生産する事業所や幅の広い食器でポリエステルなど化学繊維を織るメーカーもあります。しかし日本の繊維産業全体が人件費の安いアジアの他国へ生産拠点をシフトしてしまい、輸入品の価格競争力に対し縮小を余儀なくされてきています。
As well as chirimen, Tango also has manufacturers that produce Nishikyori obi and others who weave polyester and other man-made fibers on wider looms. However, low labor costs in the rest of Asia mean that the center of the textile industry is shifting, and the Japanese textile industry as a whole is shrinking in the face of competition from cheaper imports.
こちらは丹後の平均的な数字を示したものです。平均の年齢ですとか、雇用者の給料、そして1社あたりの規模を示しています。
Here you see the percentage of employees aged over 60 and over, the average wage of employees, and the average number of employees per business.
このような背景から従来の下請け的な立場から変化し、自ら市場に対して提案することが求められるようになりました。また、着物以外の用途の開拓も課題になってきました。
And it's for all of these reasons that we needed to move away from our role as subcontractors and create a new market for ourselves. We also wanted to find new applications for our product besides kimono.
で、織物産業は丹後の歴史と文化を語る上でなくてはならないものです。
You can't talk about the history of Tango without mentioning the textile industry.
また縮小したとはいえ、京丹後市においては事業所の数、従事者の数ともに繊維工業が最も多く、この産業が地域へ与える影響は非常に大きいと言えます。
And although numbers have shrunk, Kyotango City still has more businesses and workers involved in textiles than any other industry, and the industry has a huge impact on the area.
テキスタイルサマースクールの参加者からは、世界の中でも手工業に近い織物産業がこれだけ集まっている丹後は非常に貴重な存在だという話を聞いています。
One of our summer school participants noted that Tango was a rare and precious example of so many, more or less, hand weavers gathered together in one place, more than they'd seen anywhere else in the world.
また、織物産業は分業制が発達した特有のエコシステムです。その中で小規模な事業者が寄り添いながら技術を集積させていることは非常に興味深いことだと思っています。
I also find it interesting that the textile industry here is a unique ecosystem with a unique division of labor. There's an accumulation of technologies as small-scale businesses responsible for different stages of the process exist side by side.
メーカーの挑戦についてご紹介します。近年ではメーカー自身による積極的な活動が見られます。
I'd like to talk a bit about some of the initiatives that manufacturers are taking. In recent years, the manufacturers themselves have become much more proactive.
一つはもともと丹後ちりめんのメーカーだった会社がそのノウハウを生かして手織りのネクタイに特化したファクトリーブランドとして成長しています。
For example, one manufacturer of Tango Chirimen has used their expertise to set up a successful manufacturer's brand specializing in hand-woven ties.
ルーツとなる丹後ちりめんの伝統を現代的にブランド化し、商品開発、販売、カスタマーサービスまで業態を拡張した事例です。
They've turned their traditional Chirimen roots into a contemporary brand and have expanded their operations to cover product development, sales and marketing, and customer service.
また他方では螺鈿織、富士風、リボン織、絡み織など唯一無二の技術を持って海外へ販路を広げようとしているメーカーもあります。
There are other manufacturers who have developed unique technologies for weaving abalone shells, wisteria fibers, ribbon, and lino or gauze weave, and who are trying to broaden their market overseas.
ファッションの市場ではすでに複数の有名メゾンに採用された実績があります。
Some of them have already been picked up and used by several well-known fashion houses.
インテリアの市場においては2018年にパリのメゾン・エ・オブジェへ初出展しています。
In 2018, we exhibited at the Maison et Objet exhibition in Paris.
2019年からは丹後クリエーションプラットフォームという取り組みにおいてパリのデザイナーたちが丹後に滞在し、メーカーと商品開発を行い、産地自らがプロダクトを販売しようと試みています。
And since 2019, the Tango Creation Platform project has brought designers from Paris to Tango to develop products with the manufacturers in another proactive attempt by the region to market itself.
さまざまな用途に応用していくには、丹後ちりめんの素材としての可能性を理解し、それを深めていくことが重要だと考えています。それが今回のテーマであるシナリオの重要性とも関係しています。
In order to apply Chirimen to different use cases, we need to develop our understanding of its potential as a material. And this ties into the importance of our topic today, which is scenarios.
例えば、京都デザインラボで行われたエスパスパスのプロジェクトは、ちりめんのヘルスケア産業での活用の可能性を示したものでした。ちりめんと PPT のハイブリッド織物は、絹の強みを生かしつつ弱みが補完されています。
For example, Kyoto Design Lab's S++ project showed Chirimen's potential for use in healthcare. A hybrid of Chirimen and PTT made use of the strengths of silk whilst compensating for its weaknesses.
また、オルタナティブ・フューチャーズという展覧会について、この後お話しいただく里見美香さんが参加してくれた作品も素晴らしいものでした。私からはすでに紹介された作品以外で印象に残ったものを紹介します。
There's also the Alternative Futures exhibition, and we'll be hearing about Satomi Mika's fantastic piece that she made for that. But I'd like to introduce you to a few of the other pieces that we haven't heard about yet and that left an impression on me.
一つ目は マーチンさんの作品です。無地や柄の入った丹後ちりめんの端切れが漆により成形されています。手にすると非常に軽くて、よく見るとちりめんの柄は光を透過し、美しい陰影が生まれています。
The first is Martine Ray's piece. Scraps of plain and patterned tango chirimen were molded using bowls. They're extremely light, and if you look closely, you can see how the chirimen pattern lets the light through, creating beautiful shadows.
2つ目はスカーレットさんの作品です。通常は精錬の過程で洗い落とされる絹のタンパク質であるセリシンの活用について探求されました。これは伝統的なちりめん生産に対し、新素材開発と持続可能性への新たな展望を示したものです。
Second, we have Scarlett's piece. She explored the use of sericin, a silk protein that's usually washed off in the scouring process. And this showed the traditional chirimen industry the possibilities that lie in the development of new materials and sustainability.
3つ目は山並工房のアーティストたちの作品です。写真の真ん中に吊られている作品と右端の作品は丹後のオリキンセンターのインクジェットプリンターで印刷したものです。
Thirdly, we have these pieces by the artists of Yamanami Kobo. The piece hanging in the center and the one on the far right were printed using inkjet printers at the Orikin Center in Tango.
作品にちりめんのテクスチャーが加わりました。写真の左端のものと右から2番目は精錬前のちりめん、木端に印刷をしたものです。
And these make use of the chirimen texture. The left-hand piece and the one second from the right are printed on unscoured kibata chirimen.
通常のデジタルプリントでは専用の設備と専門性が必要となりますが、こちらはデザイナーたちが汎用的な設備で素材をハックできる、そんな工夫がされました。
Normally, to create digital prints, you need specialist equipment and specialist knowledge. But in this case, the designers hacked generic equipment to accomplish these pieces.
最後にデザインウィーク単語というイベントの公式プログラムとして行われているハッキング・ザ・ノーンというプログラムを紹介します。単語ちりめんのインテリジェントテキスタイルとしての可能性をクリエイターたちがオンラインでハックします。
To finish, let me introduce part of the Design Week Tango event called Hacking the Known. Creators went online to hack the possibilities of Tango Chirimen as an intelligent material.
このプログラムの面白いところは、テキスタイルサマースクールで蓄積された知見を背景に、カシム教授やマテリアル京都のファブラボスタッフ、そして丹後のオリキンセンターの技術スタッフたちからレクチャーが受けられるところです。
And participants in this program got to attend lectures by Professor Kasim, staff from Fab Lab at Material Kyoto, and technical staff from Tango's Orikin Center.
今回は精錬する前の木端を実際に参加者らが手にし、自由にプロトタイピングしています。コロナのおかげと言ってしまうと少し語弊がありますが、オンラインでこうしたプログラムが可能になったことは私たちにとって有意義なことです。
Participants were able to use unscoured chirimen or kibata to create prototypes. And it sounds strange to say thanks to coronavirus, but actually being able to hold a program like this online was really meaningful for us.
これまであまり関係がなかった多様な分野のクリエイターが参加し、ネットワークが広がっているのですから。
Because we had creators from a range of fields who wouldn't normally be involved with textiles, and it's really broadened our network.
これからの社会にどのような価値を提供しているのか、丹後のメーカーたちはそのことに真摯に向き合っています。その姿勢に共感し、丹後の織物を素材としての拡張性を共に形にしてくれるデザイナーや研究者たちと今後も共同していきたいというふうに思っています。
The manufacturers of Tango are committed to discovering what value they can provide to society in the future, and I hope that we'll be able to continue to work with designers and researchers who feel the same way to expand the possibilities of Tango textiles as a material.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kusakabe, for a very enlightening lecture and presentation about Chirimen silk. Really fantastic. We will have the opportunity to ask some questions after we have heard from our second speaker today, Satomi Mika. Mika is a designer and an artist working in the field of e-textiles, interaction design, and physical computing. Her work explores how we relate with technology and what we really want with regard to this. She often collaborates with musicians and performers, creating technology-embedded costumes and interactive systems. Since 2006, Mika has collaborated with Hannah Perner-Wilson, forming an art collective duo, Kobakant, creating artistic projects in the field of e-textiles and wearable technology art. She is a co-author of the e-textile online database, How to Get What You Want, and currently she lives and works in Berlin, Germany, where she is a guest professor at the Wiesenthal Art Academy, Berlin. Welcome, Mika.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the invitation to such a nice event. I'm very excited to talk, present what I did at the Kyotango and also the e-textiles in general. So I'm just going to share my screen now. Do you see my screen? It's okay? Yes. Okay, so so I'm going to briefly talk about what I do as a Kobakant collective, and then also how what kind of things you can do with the electronics textiles. And then I'm going to go into this particular project I did with Kyotango weavers. So, so I work with art collective called Kobakant, and this is a collaboration with Hannah Perner-Wilson. And we have been looking into e-textiles, which is textile materials, fabric, thread, and fibers, which has some kind of conductive materials like silver, copper, carbon, which is either plated or applied on the surface, or itself is made with a very thin fibers of these metal fabrics, metal materials. And the property of it is it conducts electricity, and therefore we can use it as a conductor for making a circuit or making actuators and sensors. And what is interesting is also that since this is a textile materials, one can use textile techniques to assemble them. So instead of using a conventional technology or electronics techniques such as solderings or plating or etching, you can use knittings and embroidering and weavings and so on. So it's really revelating this, how you can work with electronics objects or devices and how you can also design them. So for example, these are some examples that we explored. Left side is knitted and crochet pressure sensors. And this is just the yarn materials, and then you can just do any shapes you like. Or the right side is a bend sensor made out of conductive thread and special resistive textile materials. And because the form factor is textile, soft and flexible, stretchy, you can also fit in any part of your body. And these are also examples of our exploration in the technique of textiles. So we made a speaker out of a couching embroidery technique. On the right side is a Turkish needle lace technique called Ine Oyasi. And we could make a kind of very weak principle of the motor out of this technique. And these are more the exploration than the functional object, but it was very interesting to see how this almost like these traditional handcraft techniques could now reintroduce to electronics, makings of electronics devices. And this exploration we are doing, we're usually doing them as to realize our artistic projects, but also archiving them on an online database called How to Get What You Want, for us to kind of make a note of what we have done, and then also what worked, what didn't work, but also to kind of share this with the world so that other people could watch, see it, and then maybe get inspired and make their own version of this, or make their own next steps of these experiments we make. And not only the how to make something, but we also try to list where you can get these resources and how you can then apply together with electronics like circuitry and programming. And as an art collective, so we do artistic works. But we also try to work with people, and one of our motto is opening the black box of technology, and we think technology is there to serve us rather than technology telling us what to do. And one of this was Koba Electronic Textile Tailor Shop project. So we made this kind of fake tailor shop in Berlin for 1 year, and we asked anyone to come in and order us what kind of technology wearable garments they would like to have. And here are some examples of what people ordered. And this was from EMF, electromagnetic field noise listener, to a lighting up dress to go to a festival, and very custom made glove shaped keyboard. So it was very various. And we did about 14 commissions in 1 year. And it was not only about just making things, but having a conversation with people and try to kind of together think about, so what do I really want to see in technology, and what kind of technology one want to have. And after this project of the Koba, I had the chance to go to Kyotango as a part of this summer school from the KIT. And there it was first time for me to also see these traditional textile weavers in Kyotango and see how the Chirimen textile was made. And I was really fascinated, especially with this idea of using this high twist yarn. So if you don't know about Chirimen, they use this very high twisted yarn on Z direction, so one direction, and the S direction, the other direction, left and right. And with this combination of these two very highly twisted yarn coming back after it was woven, it creates this very nice 3D textures. So I brought back some of these samples and sample thread that you can more easily take the silicone out to my studio in Berlin. And I have my studio colleague, Emma, who is a RCA trained weaver. And she was very interested in this material. So we started together, make some experiments. And here's just one of the samples that she first wove just with a normal cotton yarn. And you can see on the left hand, this is what comes out from the loom. So in the beginning, it's just this very flat, normal fabric. But as soon as you wash off this fixation thing, normally it's silicone. In this case, it's much easier glue, so we can do quicker prototype. It comes back so much. And Emma have tried out different weaving structures so that she can selectively shrink some part of it. And then you can get this kind of pleated, almost pleated like 3D patterns. And then from this experiment, we were really just fascinated. And then we were just very happy to also hear that we could exhibit in as a part of this KIT's exhibition, a Chirimen exhibition in Tokyo. So we decided to do a small collaborative commission piece together with Tokumoto-san from the Orikin Center in Kyotango. So these are some of the first hand weaving tests we did together, Emma did, and we also embedded some of this highly resistive yarn in it, which is the gray part of this, this piece, and this to see if this textile could be also sensitive to pressure or stretch. And this is another tryout of trying to create different types of 3D pattern. And then after she wove and then washed off this glue, so it becomes this 3D structure, and dried. I tried out with a simple Arduino setting to see if this sensing is actually working. And this was quite interesting how sensitive it becomes to a small hand touch to more like a stronger pressures. Then this, so after we have finalized our weaving pattern or weaving design, we send this data to Tokumoto-san in Kyotango at the Orikin Center, where they do innovation, I would say, test weaving also for the Kyotango's weavers. And so now he was translating what we have designed with the also hand loom, and then always hand loom and jacquard loom works very differently, to how he can weave with the Kyotango's traditional jacquard weaving machines. And this is the result we got from Tokumoto-san. And then also with hand weaving, we could just weave very small pieces, and now we got 4 meters of this fantastic silk fabric. And this one, you can see a little bit of these gray stripes inside. So this one has alternating Chirimen silk and normal silk and resistive yarn. And this resistive yarn is what is going to sense the interaction with this fabric. And for now, we made a small piece for testing. So I cut off this small, maybe like 20 centimeter piece, and added 3 points to read out as a sensor. And this is so far what we have. So I applied a small sound samples to see the interaction with this textile. I think it's not playing very well. Let me just wait for a moment. And what I did is, so there's 3 points that is reading, but when you interact with it, these 3 different parts of the fabric is reacting differently, or like, so I squeeze one place and maybe one sensor is more catching up more data than the other part. And what I try to do is then I applied this to a machine learning algorithm, which can see the pattern of what kind of interaction is happening to the fabric. And this interpreted with this machine learning algorithm, I applied this further to sound samples. So it sounds like when I do one interaction with this fabric, one type of water sound comes, and then when I do other like interaction, then another type of sound comes. So it's seamlessly kind of capturing my interaction and behavior with this fabric. Oh, I'm sorry that it's not playing the video very well, but I'm just going to go on to the next and hopefully. Okay, yeah, and I will show you. I will show you the link to the video or the post of this project. So if you are interested, please look at the whole video later. So for me, what was the scenario, like, because I was given this topic of the scenario, what I think of this from the scenario is not so much about what this particular project did, but I was very fascinated that after this tryout or collaboration, Emma further on continued looking into this, what the characteristic of Chirimen and this 3D structure weaving can do together with electronics textiles. And recently she made this residency at UDECA. This is another big art university in Berlin, at the research lab, and she made this 3D woven sensor matrix. And she's kind of continue going on to look into what the weavers can do with the smart textiles, and then also the Chirimen's unique Chirimen fibers. And on the other hand, the Tokumoto-san at the Orikin Center in Kyontango is also fascinated with the electronics textiles, and he also made his own design and own take of this fabric, which is called ethereal fabric, like air-like fabric. And he made this very thin fabric that is also embedding this resistive yarn material, which would capture the movement of this light fabric in the air with the wind. So, and then I'm really fascinated here that they have kind of got this fever of electronics textiles, and then they're making their own turn, and they're projecting their own imagination, and then that is kind of coming into the design practice of theirs. And that, for me, that is a new scenario, and then I would like to see more of these things happening. So this is my last slide. So yeah, this is a few links from the Kobakant, and then the last one is where I documented this project called Doppel. So I'm sorry about the video, but if you're interested, please watch the full length of the video there. So thank you very much, and now I'm stopping my share.
Thank you so much, Mika. That was a fascinating presentation, and I think it gave a wonderful diversity of characteristics that can be engineered through an exploration of the assembly options, if you like, through the complexity of weave and the parameters of weave, the different qualities that we've seen in both of the presentations, I think demonstrate, almost infinite possibilities for what Chirimen could be, can be, and will be. So I'd like now to invite Kusakabe-san to please rejoin us, and we can open up the panel for questions. Questions from the attendees and from perhaps from Simon. I know I have several myself as well. So thank you both very, very much. And perhaps while we wait for some questions to come in, I would like to ask you, Kusakabe-san, about some of the complexities that you encounter with working with so many small companies within the Kyotango region, characterized perhaps as fragments of the whole process. And how do you create balanced support between the larger and smaller companies and ensure that each has a fair voice?
はい、ありがとうございます。まず2つに大きく会社の形がありまして、1つは自ら原料をですね、調達して生産し販売している形で、もう1つはそういった会社から依頼を受けて原料は供給してもらって織る部分だけの作業を対価として得ている2つのタイプがあります。
Well, firstly, there are two types of companies, I would say. The first procures the raw materials. They do the weaving, the production, and then they sell the products. The second type of company will be subcontracted by the first type of company, and they will just do the weaving part and be paid for their work.
で最初に言った方の会社のタイプというのが全体の10分の1ぐらいですので、大部分は小さな本当に小規模の会社さんなんですね。
The first type of company only really makes up maybe a tenth of all the companies. So most of the companies are very small companies outsourcing, doing the outsourcing work.
ですのでそれぞれに適したサポートをしていまして、最初のタイプについては新たな売り先を見つけるような仕事のサポートであったり、新しい新商品の開発のサポートをしていますし、2つ目のタイプについては安定的に生産できる環境の整備のあたりをサポートしています。
And we have to support all of those companies. So with the first type of company, we help them to find new markets. We help them in developing new products. And for the second type, we help to ensure that they have a stable environment where they can be productive.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a question for Mika, and it's about the summer schools. And Mika, many alternative futures have come from the Textile Summer School. Could you share with us your views on the value of the summer school?
Interesting question. I think so. Summer school is only 2 weeks, and we have 1 week visiting Kyoto, and then we had 1 week to work together in a particular topic. And then I was following so I was conducting the part which was about the electronics textiles. I can talk about that part. And I feel like a lot of textile designers who came to the school was interested in the hand techniques and the materiality of fibers. And and I feel like that appreciation to this hand, the craft of working with a textile could very much resonate with what has been happening in Kyotango and in Chirimen production. And I feel like those young people going into the future would very much, I feel like there will be a not continuous, not how it is now, but maybe there is another future that is created by these people. So yeah, that's how I like what I saw in the summer school.
Thank you. And a message has come in through the Q&A thing for both of us, Mika, and it's about the field of smart textiles, and it's exciting. But beyond Chirimen, the question is, have other Japanese textile traditions been explored? And I wonder if I could ask you that question, Mika, if you've explored things other than Chirimen.
Well, actually, I have been in Europe since more than 10 years. And so I haven't been doing so much with Japanese textile techniques. Actually, this was the first time I worked with, I went back and worked with Japanese traditional textiles. But I have worked with the textiles techniques from here in Europe, and also one time from this Turkish hand needle race techniques. And also I have worked with the Taiwanese traditional tribal weaving technique. So yeah, so I tried different ones, and then every technique has a very unique thing. And what is really interesting for working with textiles and this kind of traditional textile technique is that these things allows you to do things you cannot usually do with the conventional textile. Like you can do 2 layers, and then you can cross some things, and you can create structures, and so on and so on. So it's really interesting and fascinating to learn these hand techniques and all techniques once again.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree with that in that you know, in looking perhaps and interrogating some of our handcraft skills, or some skills and things which we might not necessarily associate with advanced fabrics or things, they often hold great clues as to how to assemble and how to manipulate and how to control really the characteristics of some different types of fibers, and also non-fiber, incorporating non-fiber aspects within it. So yeah, I think there's an awful lot still to be done within that. But perhaps I could go back now to Kusakabe-san for his view on what is the future for Chirimen production in Tango.
はい、そうですね。いつも例えば、京都デザインラボのカシム先生がおっしゃるんですけれども、ちりめんというのは非常に伝統的なものですし、手工業に近い部分というのをはらんでいるんですけれども、ある意味とてもインテリジェンスだっておっしゃるんですね。
Well, something that Kashimi Sensei of the Kyoto Design Lab always says is that Chirimen is very traditional. It's almost handcraft, but it also has its own intelligence.
なので産地丹後にいるとそれは当たり前のように日々行われているんですけれども、外の人たちから見たときにそれは非常に興味深いものであったり、応用ができる可能性というのが非常にあるなと思っていまして、ですのでそういったコラボレーションっていうのが産地の次の未来というんですかね、そういったものにつながっていくんじゃないかなっていうふうには思ってます。
And when you're based in Tango, you kind of take that for granted. But when people come from outside, they see that and they see ways of making use of that. And I think it's these collaborations that are going to contribute to the next steps and to the future of the region.
なので丹後に行けばどんな変わった織物も一緒にコラボレーションしていただけるっていうような、そんなイメージが世界中に広まるといいなと思ってます。
So I hope that people around the world are starting to get the idea that if they come to Tango, they will find someone to collaborate with them on whatever weird and wonderful textile ideas they have.
So, Mika, would you like to add to that?
Yes, yes, and then what I wanted to add is like all the textiles are smart, and it's always like when I teach the smart textiles or e-textile, the textile students, but all the textiles smart, and it's really true. Like all this has very smart properties on its own. And I was really fascinated when I worked with Tokumoto-san and Emma. So I was almost like an interpreter between these two. But because Emma doesn't speak Japanese and Tokumoto-san doesn't speak English. But when it came to this weaving, they didn't need me anymore. They had this language of weaving and language of looms. And I really think that if someone goes to Kyotango, I think you will find the language.
Thank you. Yes, I would concur with those comments, and I also agree that textiles does have its own language. And when you when you're working in a practice way with materials, the materials and the methods lead, and that there's a shared language that goes across all kinds of different sectors that can be employed. And maybe that's one of the bonuses of doing collaborative work with textiles. But I have a question that's come in through the chat box, which is about collaboration, and I'd like to get both of your comments on this. And I'll start with you, Kusakabe-san, if I may. So the question is from one of the attendees: I am interested in how the collaboration across age and cultural diverse practices and cultural norms were achieved working towards new innovative designs. What can be learned from your experience?
はい、今回のオルタナティブフューチャーズのさまざまな作品を見ていると、参加したデザイナーの皆さんのバックヤードとか、暮らしの背景っていうのが非常に反映されたものっていうのがあって、ある意味その日本の伝統産業と、彼らとのバックグラウンドのなんかこう会話というかコミュニケーションが一つアウトプットとして示されてたのかなという意味で非常に面白いなと思っています。
Well, looking at the pieces in the Alternative Futures exhibition, I think you really get a sense of the designers' backgrounds and lifestyles. And I think the communication between this traditional Japanese industry and the backgrounds of the individual designers is one of the really fascinating outputs of the project.
Thank you. And if I could ask Mika for her response to that question.
Of working collaboratively with different generation and the background people. Interesting. So if it comes to my collaboration, I think I often work with rather a similar age group and similar background people. And perhaps like the most I have is the working with the textile crafts people who are probably coming from different age group and background. And I have been always super lucky to have a very friendly relationship with them. And I wonder if it's like lucky overall, or like it's actually more than we think, that people who are doing this traditional craft and traditional techniques are actually very open to new ideas. And I think you can maybe look for much more for this kind of collaboration than we think.
Thank you. Thanks. I think I'd like to add as well that, when I've been working in those similar situations with very diverse groups, the key is finding an area of commonality that everybody can understand. And I think that goes back to your earlier point about the textile itself, and that if you understand a bit about textiles, you don't need to understand massively about it, but because textiles interacts with each and every single one of us in so many ways in our lives, I think it is something that everyone can contribute to and understand in some way and benefit from. So it does open up a very, it's very democratic in that way, I think, as a medium, actually. So I have another question that I would like to ask, which is about digital fabrication. And do the speakers think that digital fabrication has brought an awareness and interest in the mechanical? And that question is, first of all, to Kusakabe-san.
そうですね。今回先ほどのスライドの最後で紹介したハッキング・ザ・ノーンというプログラムはマテリアル京都というファブラボとコラボしてやっているんですけれども、彼らの中には 3D プリンターもあればレザーカッターもあるし、いろんなノウハウがありまして、でそれこそなんというか織物と何かコラボレーションをデザイナーがしたいとしたときに、織物の産地って非常に遠いですし、そこのハードルってすごいあるのかなと思っていて、 そうした時にデジタルファブリケーションっていうのがそのハードルを下げたり、ハックする一つのなんかこう橋渡しになるんじゃないかと思ってます。
Well, going back to the Hacking the Known event that I introduced at the end of my presentation that was held with FabLab from Material Kyoto, they have laser cutters and they have 3D printers and all these technologies. But if they wanted to collaborate with the weavers, with the textile manufacturers, there's quite a distance. They're quite far away, and digital fabrication was one way of getting rid of that obstacle and making it easier to work together.
Thank you, and interesting, very interesting. And Mika, do you have any comments on that sort of, you know, the virtual and the physical?
Maybe not so much of virtual and physical, but I think that digital fabrication does not go against, or like digital fabrication and then hand production techniques doesn't go to the opposite end, or they don't fight each other. I think they could totally contribute to each other. And then I think a lot of people actually more and more looking into these techniques, that how you can incorporate handworking in the digital fabrication process, or how do they add to each other, how do they enable something. So I think that is a very interesting field, I find.
Thank you. Yes. So to summarize, you know, they're not binary, they're not sort of polarized and opposed, but actually they are complementary and combined. Fantastic. Thank you. We've got another question from the chat box, which is about the climate in Japan, and the question is really, is Chirimen sensitive to climatic conditions, and is Chirimen most suitable to the Japanese climate? So Kusakeba-san, if you could answer.
単語には、弁当は忘れても傘忘れるなっていうことわざがありまして、それぐらい雨が多いんですね。湿気が多いんです。で、それが非常にちりめんにとって、生産にとってすごくいいんだっていうふうに言ってます。
There's a saying in Tango, you can forget your lunch, but don't forget your umbrella. It rains that much. There's so much rain, so much humidity, and they say that is the best climate for Chirimen, yes.
なので、シルクの特性を生かして乾燥させたり、お湯で煮たりするわけですから、湿気のコントロールっていうのを非常に重視してますので、湿潤的な環境があるというのがすごく有利に働くということは言えると思います。
And in the process of producing the silk, you need to make use of the properties of silk, and you dry it, you boil it. You really need to control the moisture and the humidity, and this is an ideal environment for that.
Thank you. Thanks very, very much. I'm very aware that we're beginning to run out of time, so I have a final question here. And this is for both of you. What innovation would the speakers like to see? So first of all to Kusakabe-san, and then to Mika.
そうですね、難しい質問ではあるんですけれども、やっぱりデジタルファブリケーションとか今の、テクノロジーが組み合わさって、それがなんかただの物珍しさ、を生み出すというよりは、抽象的ですけれども、そういった手工業の背景があればこそ、社会に対して還元できる価値とか、それが持続可能性の高いものだとか、そういった領域で、テクノロジーと協力するような、そんなイノベーションだと嬉しいなと思ってます。
That's a hard question, but in the abstract, I think I would like to see something that makes use of digital fabrication and these traditional techniques, not just to produce something for its own sake, but to produce something that makes use of this background in handcraft to contribute to society in a very sustainable way.
Thank you, Kusakabe-san. And Mika.
Yeah, it's a really difficult question. I think it's not so much of the material that I look for, but I look for a society that would question, or like, I wonder what our society would come to the point that says, I want a material that is made in this way, made by this way, or by this person, or by this group of people. And I want to consume this in this way. I want to keep this in that way. So those thoughts goes to the next step than our current very consuming based society. And then I wonder what kind of material is existing in that society. So, and then I would like to see that material that is made by people in a sustainable society.
Thank you both very much. I'm going to hand back over to Simon Wright now for his concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you. And thank you also to Satomi-san and Kusakabe-san. Thank you very much. Extraordinarily interesting. I was immensely impressed, actually, by the comments that you made first, Mika, about how the newest designers are creating another future that values handcraft, and therefore the universality of that and how important that is to Japan, how much we value it at Japan House, most definitely, but how collaboration and a mixture of technologies can and from outside, which Kusakabe-san was mentioning, can add value to what is already existing. And I thought that was extremely important. And I loved what you said about the language of skill and technique as well can override any problems in language that may exist between people from different parts of the world. Extremely inspiring. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anne, for sharing. Thank you also to Professor Julia Kasim from Kyoto Design Lab for her support in this series of events. This is the last in that series. And also thank you to Bethan Jones for your interpreting for us today. Thank you, everybody who's attended. If your question hasn't been answered on this occasion, you can still try to submit it through events@japanhouselondon.uk, and we will endeavour to answer them for you. And following this event, you will receive a follow-up questionnaire. Please do fill it in, as it will help us to continue events like this. I will now briefly show you what is happening at Japan House. So, of course, this event was complementary to our exhibition, Making Nuno, Japanese Textile Innovation from Sudoreiko. That runs until the 11th of July here at Japan House, London. We also have a set of screenings behind the scenes of Nuno Textiles, the short films. Please do come and see those as well, also until the 11th of July. And to accompany the exhibition, we do have a series of gallery tours starting on the 27th of May until the 1st of July at the moment. Please check the website for details. Accompanying the exhibition, we will also be launching a social media giveaway on Monday, the 4th of June. So please keep an eye on the website for that as well, and through our social media channels. Another event that will be coming up soon is the World of Saito Seiichi, the Creative Action for the Future. This is on the 22nd of June. Another online event. Saito Seiichi is the art director for the exhibition Making Nuno. We also are launching our Architecture for Dogs Roadshow again. This was suspended, unfortunately, due to lockdown, but we're now relaunching. This is a playground for non-humans at the Architectural Association here in London from Friday the 11th to Friday the 18th of June. Please do feel free to attend with your dog. Thank you very much indeed, once again, for all who's taken part today. Thank you, Anne Toomey from the Royal College of Art. Thank you, Satomi Mika, joining us from Berlin. And thank you, Kusukabe Satoru-san, joining us from Kyotango in Kyoto Prefecture. And thank you, of course, to Julia Kasim, who has been integral in helping us put this together. Many, many thanks. I hope those of you who've joined us will join us again sometime. And we look forward to seeing you all either virtually or in person at Japan House London. Thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.